I received a message about Deuteronomy chapter 21, which mentions stoning your children. This can often cause confusion and can be a reason some look at the God of the Old Testament as evil. So I want to read the message so you can understand where he's coming from. I want to share 3 points about Deuteronomy 21 so you see it in its true light, and then end the video with an important point all Christians need to consider. So let's start by reading this message. I enjoy your videos. There is something in the Bible that confuses me, and I hope you will help me. Why did God give Moses a law that acknowledges stoning, even stoning your own children if they misbehave? The text even says that the reason for this law is to instill fear in the population. For me, this is a major problem, since it portrays God as an evil and cruel being, a being that I don't wish to follow. But from the teachings of Jesus and Paul, we know that God is love. It doesn't make any sense to me. Can you help? I don't take messages like this lightly. I know these are tough questions we have to ask ourselves. Sometimes it's easier than others. So let me help him and you by first analyzing the passage in question. It's best to accept that the passage does say parents could stone their children, but it's not what most people think when they hear or read this verse. This was not a command for young children, and this was not quick either. It's only 4 verses, so let me walk you through it and show you. Starting at Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 18, it says, "If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and when they have chastened him will not listen unto them." This first verse clears up much confusion. It shows that this is not based on feelings or emotions, but based on a child being stubborn and rebellious. This also shows this child was breaking the 5th commandment. The 5th commandment says, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long on the earth." Verse 18 also mentions that parents were disciplining their children. This shows this came after a period of discipline and correction, which was ignored. And after this, parents could not just stone their children. They had to get the elders of the city to judge the case. In the next verse it says, "Then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of his city and unto the gate of his place." Neighbors would know of this child's behavior as well, but the leaders in the city would have to see this child. You can see reading context changes the image, doesn't it? The next verse shows this child is an adult. Verse 20 says, "And they shall say unto the elders of his city, This our son, stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice, a glutton and a drunkard." This child is a glutton and alcoholic. This is not speaking about a young child here, because I don't know any children who are alcoholics and obese by choice. Do you? Did you know that obesity and alcoholism are 2 major problems shortening lives today? This passage is about a man or woman who is breaking many major commandments. He does not want correction and is harming his family and his nation by his actions. This not only endangers your own life, but the lives of others influenced by you. And this is why after all these corrections, verse 21 says, "And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shall you put away evil from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear." This adult leeching on society, spreading deadly habits, gets punished his crimes. And this leads me to the second point I want to make. The context clears up confusion. You may think the punishment is too much for the crime, but understanding capital punishment also helps us understand this passage as well. Capital punishment is using the death penalty as punishment for specific crimes. And we must think about why capital punishment is still used today, even in places like America. America, for example, uses the death penalty against threats to survival of the people. My point is not to get you to like or accept the death penalty, but to accept it's still in motion today. And this leads to my third point. Why is this done for the people to be afraid? Even by still using the death penalty today, it does provide an element of fear. This is why countries still use it. I remember growing up hearing about what happens if caught stealing in Saudi Arabia. Hearing about these types of punishments are strong reasons not to commit the crime. The point of the law was to keep people in line with God. It was to keep them in the best health possible and in a position to promote God to all who saw them. When they broke this, it damaged their testimony. And this leads me to a concern I have for some Christians, which comes from some teachers. They may mean well, but end up putting Christians in a dangerous position. I don't like, nor would I tell you to just brush away passages which may trouble you with statements like, "This is just the Old Testament," or "This doesn't apply anymore." It is the old covenant. We do live under a better covenant today. And many of these laws were only for Israel, but Jesus is God. This means he was in total agreement with everything in the Old Testament. We cannot nor should we divide the Old Testament from the New Testament in this way. Jesus quoted the Old Testament all the time. If God is evil in the Old Testament, Jesus is evil too. But we know Jesus is not evil, don't we? So God cannot be evil. The better way to do things is to ask why. And in my personal walk with God, asking God why and waiting for his responses have always been the best thing for me. And I've always built my faith to another level. And it will do the same for you too. Thank you for watching. See you next time. God bless.